Vallabha Girivacharanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Shatara Sata Shri Śrīmad. The Divine Grace of Bhayacharanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Shatara Sata Shri Śrīmad. Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Shalhar Das Thakur Ki. Grantaraj Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki. Gaur Premanandi. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious Sri Guru Sri Gauranga Srila Prabhupada. I'll ask Bhakta Ken if you could just turn the volume up a bit on this. Let's see. Let's see. We'll read a little bit from Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita. A little bit louder than that, Bhakta. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That should be okay. We're reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled India, Unifying ISKCON. So Prabhupada was giving some instructions on the various concerns surrounding the divisions, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So he will continue. Push to Krishna. For example, as we have been discussing, there are different tendencies between the Brahmacharis and the Grihasthas. The attitude of the Brahmacharis is toward renunciation. If a Brahmachari gives up his Brahmachari life to become a Grihastha, that it means he is more inclined to the enjoying spirit, at least to some extent. So how to deal with this situation? Srila Prabhupada, if you want to enjoy, who can stop you? Tamal Krishna. But we cannot support it. We cannot support his enjoyment. That he should take on himself. Thank you, Guru. Srila Prabhupada, according to different positions and attitudes, the four ashramas are there. Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. This means that everyone is not on the equal platform. There are different platforms. But the whole idea is how to give up the propensity for enjoyment that is wanted. Push to Krishna. We find in the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam that Shukadeva Goswami would approach the householders in the morning just so long as to give them a little bit of spiritual knowledge, and he would accept the offering of some milk. So the sannyasis and renunciants, generally, they wouldn't very much relish the association of householders because of this enjoying spirit and the association that it entails. So we are finding also that within our society, that those who are inclined to remaining celibate, they are finding the association of persons, even within our movement, who have this enjoying spirit, to be somewhat detrimental to their own spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada, then what is your proposal? You should drive them away? Tamal Krishna, no, that is not the problem. Because everyone comes together for association. They come together in the temple for kirtan, for lectures, for sadhana. These things are common activities. There's no question that we should not have common activities between all the ashrams. But for living, there must be separate arrangement. Prabhupada. Now, even in the temple, you are complaining that a husband and wife are talking. Prabhupada seemed almost coy in the way he gradually led and manipulated the issue. He was also hearing more clearly the minds and hearts of his divided disciples. Tamal Krishna, yes, they are not talking Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Srila Prabhupada, that you will find everywhere. Bhagavat dāsa. There's a complaint that sometimes is made that there's too much aversion on the part of the brahmacharis. But isn't that a quality of a brahmachari, that he should have a healthy contempt for sense gratification? Srila Prabhupada, I do not follow. The devotees crowded around as closely as possible. This was an important point. Pushna Krishna. He's saying that sometimes the brahmacharis and even the sannyasis may have a strong aversion to association with women in household life. But sometimes the grihastas will criticize the sannyasis and brahmacharis and say, this is fanaticism. The grihastas say that this is just as bad as the enjoying spirit, because the sannyasi is meditating on the same thing, except that he's averse to it. So Bhagavat Dasa's question is it better to be neutral or to be averse? Prabhupada, these are all fanaticism. Real unity is in advancing Krishna consciousness. Kalo nastyeva nastyeva nastyeva. In the Kali Yuga, you cannot strictly follow. Neither I can strictly follow. If I criticize you, if you criticize me, then we go far away from our real life of Krishna consciousness. Push to Krishna. So is it correct to say that if we are not Krishna conscious, then if it's not the grihasta problem, it would be some other problem? Srila Prabhupada, yes. We should always remember that either grihasta or brahmachari or sannyasi, nobody can strictly follow all the rules and regulations. In the Kali Yuga, it is not possible. If I will simply find fault with you, and if you find fault with me, then it will be factional, and our real business will be hampered. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended that Harinam, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, should be very rigidly performed, which is common for everyone, grihasta, vanaprastha, and sannyas. They should always chant Hare Krishna mantra. Then everything will be adjusted. Otherwise, it is impossible to advance. We should be complicated with the details only. This is called niyamagraha. I think I have explained it. Madhavis, yes, in the nectar of instruction. Prabhupada, niyamagraha is not good. Niyama means regulative principles. Anagraha means not to accept. Agraha means the opposite, too eager to accept the regulative principles, but no advancement spiritually. Both of them are called niyamagraha. So the basic principle is that niyamagraha is not recommended. If we advance in Krishna consciousness by the simple method of chanting 24 hours Kirtaniya Siddhahari, then things will be automatically adjusted. You cannot find in Kali Yuga that everything is being done very correctly to the point. That is very difficult. Just like our poet, Allen Ginsberg, he was always accusing me, Swamiji, you are very conservative and strict. Actually, I told him, I am never strict, neither I am conservative. If I become conservative, then I cannot live here for a moment. So I am not at all conservative. I was living with one boy, Carl Jurgens. I was cooking, and I saw in the refrigerator some pieces of meat for his cat. So still I kept my food in that refrigerator. What can be done? They had been talking for over an hour, and Prabhupada had given definitive instructions, but it was not over yet. It was clear, however, who was in control. Srila Prabhupada ki. We'll take up the next time. I encourage everyone to read Prabhupada's Leelamrita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Scheduled Incarnations. And what's our text for today? 13. Very good. I'm glad that's the one I looked at. Chaitanya, did you get a chance to take photos yet? Okay. Chaitanya is our expert substitute photographer. And everyone's eagerly waiting for that darshan. We get messages when there's no darshan. Who forgot to take the photos? Why is there no darshan? Where's Radha Govinda? So we'll chant the word individually and then the complete shloka. Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam Amara Danava Yatapanam Unmatnatam Amrita Labdhaya Adi Devam Prishtena Kachapa Vapur Vidadhara Gotrang Nidrakshano Dri Parivarta Kashana Kanduhu. Let's see what meter this is. Shiro Dadava Maradhanava Yuktapanam Shiro Dadava Maradhanava Yuktapanam Utmatnatamam Nitalabdaya Adideva Unmatnatamam Nitalabdaya Adideva Pristena Kachapavapur Vidadhara Gotrang Pristena Kachapavapur Vidadhara Gotrang Nidrakshano Dri Parivarta Kashana Kandu Nidrakshano Dri Parivarta Kashana Kandu. Please chant. Hiro Dadava Maradanava Yuktapanam Unmatnatamam Natalabdhaya Adideva Bristena Kachapavapur Vidadhara Gotram Nidrakshano Ji Parivarta Kashana Kandu. Hiro Dadava Maradanava Yuktapanam Unmatnatamam Natalabdaya Adideva Pristena Kachapavapur Vidadhara Gotram Nidrakshano Ji Parivarta Kashana Kandu. Hiro Dhamma Maradhanava Yuktapanam Unmatnatamam Nitalabdaya Adideva Pristena Kacchava Vapurvidadara Gotram Nidrakshunodri Parivata Kashana Kandu. Ladies. Hiro Dadava Maradana Vayuttapanam Unmat Natamamrita Labdhaya Adideva Pristena Kacchava Vapurvidadara Gotram Nidrakshunodri Parivata Kashana Kandu Hiro Dadava Maradana Vayuttapanam Utmat Natamamrita Labdhaya Adideva Pristena Kacchava Vapurvidadara Gotram Nidrakshunodri Parivata Kashana Kandu. Kshir, milk, udadao, in the ocean of Amara, the demigods, Danava, the demons, Uttapanam, of the leaders of both hosts, Unmatnatam, while churning, Amrita, nectar, Labdhaya, for gaining, Adideva, the primeval Lord, Prishtena, by the backbone, Kachapa, tortoise, Vapu, body, Vidadara, assumed, Gotram, the Mandara hill, Nindrakshana, while partly sleeping, Adri Parivarta, rolling the hill, Kasana, scratching, Kandu, itching. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The primeval Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve as a resting place, pivot, for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as a churning rod. The demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain in order to extract nectar. The mountain moved back and forth, scratching the back of the tortoise, who while partially sleeping was experiencing an itching sensation. Purport. Although it is not in our experience, there is a milk ocean within this universe. Even the modern scientist accepts that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of planets hovering over our heads, and each of them has different kinds of climatic conditions. Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam gives much information which may not tally with our present experience. But as far as Indian sages are concerned, knowledge is received from the Vedic literatures, and the authorities accept without any hesitation that we should look through the pages of authentic books of knowledge, Shastra Chakshavat. So we cannot deny the existence of the ocean of milk, as stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, unless and until we have experimentally seen all the planets hovering in space. Since such an experiment is not possible, naturally we have to accept the statement of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as it is, because it is so accepted by spiritual leaders like Sridhar Swami, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, and others. The Vedic process is to follow in the footsteps of great authorities, and that is the only process for knowing that which is beyond our imagination. The primeval Lord, being all-powerful, can do whatever he likes, and therefore his assuming the incarnation of a tortoise or a fish for serving a particular purpose is not at all astonishing. Therefore, we should not have any hesitation whatsoever in accepting the statements of the authentic scriptures like Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The gigantic work of churning the milk ocean by the combined effort of the demigods and the demons required a gigantic resting ground or pivot for the gigantic Mandara hill. Thus, to help the attempt of the demigods, the primeval Lord assumed the incarnation of a gigantic tortoise swimming in the ocean of milk. At the same time, the mountain scratched his backbone as he was partially sleeping and thus relieved his itching sensation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chakshurm Latamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankai Tegurim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataradam. So these incarnations are very interesting, no? No one has experience of this, these different aspects of transcendental appearances and disappearances of the Supreme Lord. But the hint is in the Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame devyam evam yo veti tatvataha tyaktva puna janma nayati mamiti sojana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance, he never takes birth again. So how is that knowledge sufficient to stop this endless samsara? The definition of samsara means continuous. It's like we see the Mobius strip. Everyone knows what a Mobius strip is? A Mobius strip is the symbol for infinity. Okay, no beginning and no end. Looks like a figure 8. It's called a Mobius strip. Okay? And the planes are interchangeable because it twists. It simultaneously is different, but at the same time one. So this is also the nature of the multi-dimensional aspect of these material and spiritual worlds. One reads carefully the Sri Brahma Samhita. This is the instruction manual, technically, in one sense, for the material universe, spoken by Lord Brahma. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's purports, which are also extracted from Sri Jiva's purports, are that these material and spiritual worlds exist simultaneously on the same plane, like the Mobius strip. But they cannot be perceived by one who cannot see through the Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. This is the primary instruction in the Sri Brahma Samhita. One can see only when his eyes are tinged with the salve of love. This is not mundane love. This is not lust. Mundane love opens one's eyes to the nefarious activities in the material world. But the Premanjana Charita opens one's eyes to the spiritual firmament. So the sages have this darshan continuously if they like. But sometimes they take the position of the instructing spiritual master. So although they are the Uttama Adhikaris, the Bhagavat, just for the service of the Lord, they accept this responsible position. All right. Just like Srila Prabhupada was saying here, that from his perspective, what is the perspective of the Uttama Adhikari? He sees everyone as a devotee. So they're talking to Prabhupada and giving him these various concerns. And what is his conclusion? This is all fanaticism. is all fanaticism. Because he sees everyone equally. Right? Vijja vinaya sampanya. The learned sage sees with equal vision. So this is the goal, at least in our simple attempts to try to accommodate the various differences we see. Yeah. You know, the worst possible mentality for a devotee to possess is an unnecessarily critical outlook. It kills one's spiritual life, prevents him from making spiritual advancement. Fault finding. Right? It's a great day when one realizes that any faults he sees externally are simply a reflection of his own shortcomings. And the Christians have it in a different way, according to the time and circumstances. They say, you cannot take the splinter out of someone else's eye until you take the log out of yours. That's the summary. And so this is the simple understanding. And here we're trying to appreciate knowledge which is beyond our material capacity. Right? The scientists are very fond of saying that God does not exist. But have they gone every place? Have they been throughout the universe? Have they been beyond the universe? No. So then how can anyone declare that God does not exist? It's like saying the laws of nature do not exist. Is there someone so foolish who will say that? He'll walk to the edge of a cliff and say, I don't believe in the law of gravity, and jump. Yeah, there may be some foolish persons like that. Prabhupada one time said, just to give an indication of this particular situation, he said, you walk to the edge of a cliff. The mind says jump, but the intelligence says no. Right? Everyone's perceived that. What would it be like? Yeah, just take that step. What would it be like? No, but the intelligence says no. That's of course foolishness. I'll die. Right? Even the karmis have a saying like that. When people do foolish things, what do? They say, here, hold my beer. That's an indication that they're going to do something foolish. So everyone knows churning, because this is a lost art, churning. Have you ever seen a butter churn?
Well, in our culture, we use coconut things, and we twist the coconut and the coconut oil.
That's it. So there's a post, and a rope is wrapped around it, and then there's a spindle which goes into the pot. And then by pulling the rope, it moves the spindle. So the post has to be connected to one point, and the rope that's spun around it has to be pulled and manipulated. But you can't just pull on a rod unless it's fastened. And it has to rest in something. The pivot, which in this case is the tortoise, the incarnation. And so these things are difficult to imagine if persons have no experience. And so material scientists, they read these things and they dismiss it out of hand because they have no experience. It's not that they understand it. It's that they don't understand it, and they don't want to try to understand it. So this is the problem with, the intellectual capacity of materialists. In this day and age, they have lost the ability to apply critical thinking where it counts the most. An intelligent man doesn't think that he knows everything. He actually just the opposite. Intelligent man thinks, no, I don't know anything. You know, how do we appreciate the majesty of the material universe, it's all its splendor? You know, only a less intelligent person looks at it and thinks that all of this is just by chance, by accident. That the sun is rising every day by accident, or the moon, or the planets, intricately balanced, you know, in the universe, in their own orbits. You know, you don't read about, you know, we can't say, I mean, from human history, we have a certain capacity to extrapolate, and we understand that the universe is billions of years old, and all those billions of years, you know, the solar system has been in existence. You know, and they try to say at some point that the planets were, you know, in their formation period, that maybe they were colliding, that maybe the moon was a chunk of the earth that broke off. You know, but this is all speculation. It's all speculation. There's no experience of it in observable history. As long as humans have been around, there's no record of any of these planets colliding. For the last 5,000 years at least. You know, so this is, if they want to extrapolate, then extrapolate the perfection of a system that's been undisturbed for 5,000 years. But no, they have to try to fit some narrative. So we try to present, according to time and circumstances, that which the common man can clearly understand and appreciate. The detail, like Srila Prabhupada said, these are all details. The details someone will find out after his heart is cleansed. But initially, he has to first understand that I'm not this body. Because everything springs from that one realization. His mind becomes opened to the realm of possibility of transcendental knowledge. Because he has appreciated that one truth, that I'm eternal spirit soul. That is the initial situation, that I am spirit soul, I am not this body. And when Prabhupada's discussing with so many people in various things, he doesn't dwell on the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We read one of the most powerful books on distribution, it's The Science of Self-Realization. Why? Because Prabhupada is clearly engaged in this exchange of thought on a level that anyone can understand. Anyone can understand. This is the symptom of a realized soul. That he can impart knowledge unto you according to the time and circumstances because he has seen the truth. Just like if you've never been to some particular country, you ask someone, have you ever been there? And he says, yes, I've been there. And then he can proceed to tell you everything about that place. Or you have no experience, so you cannot comment. You can say, I don't believe you. Yeah, that happens. I don't believe you. I don't believe that in Hawaii there's a beach with black sand. I don't believe it. I've never seen it. Yeah. This is the frog philosophy. They can't understand beyond their own personal experience. Very difficult when you come across a person like that who is so limited, no capacity for to hear anything that might increase his awareness. And after all, that's the name of the game, to become aware in every situation. People say situational awareness. What does that mean? It means when you're walking in the street, you're not oblivious. You don't have your earbuds in, cranked up, and that you can't hear the footsteps of the mugger coming up on you. So you have no situational awareness. You're oblivious. So in the material world, everyone, practically speaking, is oblivious. And what kind of earbuds? He has his mind. His mind is constantly going on. He's distracted, constantly distracted by social media, by this, by that, by the difficulties he's experiencing, by the pleasure he's anticipating. He's always distracted. This is the nature. What is the mind called? Chanchalam, flickering. Never steady until he understands the art of meditation. This Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the key to all realization, and it's absolutely free. People wonder, they think there has to be some other exchange. They're so used to paying for things which are, an intelligent man would not pay for. You don't have to pay for the sun, you don't have to pay for the moon, you don't have to pay for the air you breathe. These things are all given freely. Right? And realization of God is also given freely. But the price to pay is that one has to go to that guide so that he can see through the eyes of the self-realized soul. That Shastra Chakshus, that same vision that reveals these phenomena that we have no experience of. A tortoise being used as a pivot. And when people think of a tortoise, what do they think of? They think of this small little ground tortoise, some gopher tortoise. In Florida, you have gopher tortoises. You're in big trouble if your land has gopher tortoises. They won't let you construct. It becomes a sacred habitat. You're in big problems. People go to extreme lengths to make sure that there's no gopher tortoises on their property. So indirectly, they're causing their extinction because people just get rid of them so that nobody finds them. And this tortoise is not like the tortoise, that you see in the Galapagos. They have these turtles like at Radhakund. Has anyone been to Radhakund? These are not tiny little things. These things are huge. They're 3 or 4 feet long and 2 or 3 feet wide. They look like sea turtles. And the ones that swim in the Jamuna, unfortunately, have a taste for human flesh. Why is that? Anyone know why?
There's a lot of dead bodies.
Because they throw their dead bodies in the Jamuna. So they're almost as bad as alligators. If some small unsuspecting child wades into the water near what they call the burning ghat, just not far from the Vishram Ghat in Mathura, where the Lord rested after. He always has a place where he rests after he kills the demons. So in Mathura there's also a Vishram Ghat. So one time, little kid was playing in the water. His sister was beating the laundry on the rock. These are the poor people, And all of a sudden, a tortoise grabbed him, started pulling him in the water. The sister ran after him to try to save him. And she got pulled in, because they don't come alone. They're in packs. And of course, they were retrieved with great difficulty, but they were half eaten. So this is the material world. Here you have the transcendental tortoise, and then you have the material tortoise. Which one do you want? Take your pick. So everything is like that. There is opposites. The pleasure in the spiritual world is not like the pleasure in the material world. Pleasure in the material world, what do they say? I think it was Shakespeare, right? He said, what is nectar in the beginning is like poison at the end. And what is like poison in the beginning is nectar at the end. Because austerity leads to the greatest happiness. Self-realization of the. But self-indulgence leads to the greatest misery. One becomes completely spent. His whole life is wasted. His bodily strength, luster, everything is lost through indulgence in that degree. You know, and it's considered a sin. I mean, 7 deadly sins, you know. They even make movies about it. You know? But people don't take it seriously. They want to discount religion because it interferes with their sense gratification. And so when they read the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, they dismiss it as mythology. Why? Because they have no experience of it. No experience of the demigods, no experience of the Danavas, the demons. No. So they keep their eyes tightly closed in order to avoid the reality, just like the rabbit. What does a rabbit do when he's confronted with danger? Anybody know? No, he closes his eyes. He closes his eyes. He can't escape. It's something in them know instinctively. But it's a famous thing. The rabbit confronted with danger, he closes his eyes. Thinks it'll make everything go away. Right? No. This is the analogy for someone who has no knowledge, no self-awareness. Right? Don't be a rabbit. You know, there's so many other opportunities to expand one's consciousness. You know, that this information here, it's not the circumstances that are wonderful, that the Lord is superior to the Torah, but that the Lord, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he specifically advertises that yada yada dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. He comes every age just to protect the devotees and to annihilate the demons. So this is the wonderful backstory for all of these activities. Because he doesn't have to exercise any energy to kill the demons. Demons are just simply by his willpower. Everything happens by the will of the Lord. But he engages in these pastimes to give pleasure to the devotees. Because by hearing and chanting of this, one increases his love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's all. There's nothing else. When a devotee reads Krishna book, he thinks, oh, my wonderful Krishna, just see what he can do. And the materialist reads this, and what does he think? Oh, this is a fairy tale. Just see the difference. Now, so this is, and the fact that the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a compendium of the highest knowledge. And if anyone reads it, he becomes completely awakened, not just to the realities of this material world, you know, the cosmic manifestation, you know, which we went through in the previous chapter, but of the entire spiritual manifestation. He sees how they exist. You know, within his limited capacity, he has an appreciation which could not otherwise be there without this ability to accommodate that there is a spiritual realm. Right? The karmis are trying. They really try hard. They understand that there's, you know, 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. And they think that there's a 4th dimension. They say it's time is its own dimension, time. What about the 5th dimension? Not the music group from the 60s, you know? What about all this? The fifth dimension is a spiritual realm. So we have this. It's called Turiya. Prabhupada gives that definition, Turiya. Completely transcendental. So the devotees don't advertise, walk around and say, hey, read this book, psst, read this book and you'll see the transcendental spiritual world. No, that's not the primary first approach. No, first, what did Prabhupada say? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, the Prabhupada paraphrased, that this is a book to make you civilized. You become civilized, at least become a gentleman. Understand things as they are. That understanding breeds a certain attitude. You see a devotee is composed. He's not disturbed. He knows that God has a plan. He may not understand it completely. Who can? But this is no reason to discount the existence of God. That is the fault of the materialist, because he cannot understand, therefore. But there are so many things that you cannot understand with your blunt material senses. Right? Prabhupada uses that term, blunt material senses. Like trying to cut vegetables with a dull knife. Everyone has experience, especially if you work in a kitchen. You grab the knife and you go to cut, and it's like sawing. What's going on here? What happened to this knife? That's the blunt material senses. You're trying to apply them to transcendental knowledge, and nothing's happening. Because your senses have to be sharpened by the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then what happens? Boom, cuts right through the knot of material entanglement. It's a hard knot in the heart. Cuts right through it. Chindanti kovida tasya. Bhagavat. This is our Gopal Champu, who's going to become a Bhagavat. What do they call it? One of the most important chapters, and I'm not a very advanced soul, but for me, if one wants to get firmly fixed up and remain fixed up, first canto, what? The second chapter, we were talking? Because everything, it's just like the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's like the summary study of the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam. All this knowledge condensed. So we have this great facility here to awaken this dormant, it's just, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, the knowledge is unlimited. It's unlimited. And if once one gets a taste of this, he becomes hungry in a manner that is not akin to this material hunger where your appetite is satiated and then you wait some time. No, it's continuous. You want to hear more and more. This is the nature of transcendental topics. They never become tiresome. You can go on hearing and hearing about the incarnations of the Lord, about the pastimes of the Lord, about his dealings with the devotees. It's unlimited. Never become tired. How many times have we read Krishna book? Dozens of times. People can only read a book one time and then they put it down. And it sits on their shelf. And they never read it again. They just keep it there and they look at it. It's like some, I don't know what you want to call it, some conquest. I read this book, or some point of pride. Just see my library. All these things. It's as if those books could make you smart or could impress upon others. In the old days, they used to call a person who was learned, what did they call him? A man of letters. What letters are those? A, B, C, D? I mean, what letters? or PhD. What did Prabhupada say about PhD? Fully dog. Fully dog.
Post-hole digger.
Huh?
Post-hole digger.
Post-hole digger. So we don't want to become fully dogged. We have no need. The South Indian Brahmin who was reading Bhagavad Gita, he was illiterate. He was illiterate. And the people in the village used to make fun of him. That, what are you doing? You're illiterate. How can you read? You know, why are you holding this book every day and sitting there? But his spiritual master instructed him, you read 18 chapters Bhagavad Gita every day. The whole Bhagavad Gita. But he cannot read. He's just turning the pages. Just turning the pages. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired, Brahmin, what are you doing? He could understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not asking in this mood of ridicule. And so he answered him. He said, actually, I am illiterate. I cannot read. But my spiritual master ordered me to read every day, so therefore, I am sitting here and I am turning the pages. And he said, but Brahmin, I see that you're experiencing some emotion. He was actually crying. He said, because when I read this Bhagavad Gita, when I open it up, in my mind, I see Krishna and Arjuna on the chariot. And I think, how great is the Lord? That he has become the charioteer driver of Arjuna. He's become the chariot driver of Arjuna. So in this way, he understands how the Lord is so kind, you know, to take up this position, to even serve the devotees. And then Lord Chaitanya embraced him. Yes, you have understood Bhagavad Gita. You have understood Bhagavad Gita. This is the purpose for the Lord's appearance and disappearance. So what more do we need to know? But it's not that we simply we're content with the basics. That's akin to liberation. Yes, one no longer has that. What is that? Nehabrakramanasasti prativayanavidite sopamapyasya dhamasya chayate mahatobayat. You know, that a little advancement in this path saves one from the most dangerous type of fear. Most dangerous type. Everyone has their conception of what is the most dangerous type of fear. But for the most part, the fear of death is the greatest fear. No one wants to be canceled. Right? And go to Yamadanda, go to the court of the Lord of Death. And hear all of your, it would make you crazy to think, to understand to the extent of your sinful activity. It would make you crazy, just to think. No one can understand what it is. No one even knows. You know, they have this so-called 7 deadly sins. Right? But what makes them so deadly? You know, what about the things that you don't understand with regards to action and reaction, karma? You know, even by walking, one is killing so many living entities. Do you think that just because there's some insignificant ant, that by killing them there's no reaction? So this is how the materialist justifies his existence, you know, by constantly exploiting other living entities in various ways. You know, culminating in the so-called, Prabhupada used to call it the killing of the child in the womb. He said, this is Kali Yuga. Right? And who could even conceive of it? You know, they have their intelligence is so bewildered. Moga samoga kamana moga jnana vicetasa. Stolen by illusion. Not just stolen, but fully covered over. So much so that they can justify the killing of the living entity that's in the womb of the mother. In any case, this vision of the Kurma avatar, if you just see that there's the demons on one side and the devotees on the other, and what is the rope? Vasuki, the great serpent. You know, and they had to flip a coin to see who would get the heads and who would get the tails, because Vasuki's breathing fire. It's a fire-breathing snake, you know. This is where they get all those ideas about dragons, you know, which, you know, populate the old Asian mythology, they say. But it's not mythology. Vasuki, fire-breathing snake. Not just fire-breathing, also flying. You know, so back down in the vestigial depths of our brains, we have these experiences of these living entities. And so they manifest in our literature. They come out. But it must have been a humorous thing to see. You know, who gets the head, who gets the tail. Then you see the picture, and they're pulling and pulling. And so many things are coming out when they start to churn, you know. And Lord Shiva got a famous name from that, Nilakanta. Because the first thing that came out of the churning was poison, deadly poison. And they didn't know what to do with it. It can't stay there because you want to extract the nectar. So first you have to, when you're churning, just like when you're cooking ghee, you have to skim off the impurities. So they're churning, and the first thing that comes up is this poison. So they have to get rid of it. So Lord Shiva agrees to drink the poison. And what happens? His neck turns blue and stays that way. So he's called Nilakanta. So these are all relishable for the devotees. But the materialistic things, just engage in storytelling. Yes, it is storytelling. Storytelling about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how wonderful. You know, how we can enter back that tyaktva deyam punarjanma nayati mameti. I want that. We have to want that. Not to take birth again in the material world. So as long as you're coming on a regular basis and hearing the topics of Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, your destination is confirmed. Just like you go on the train and the conductor, I think they still do that. They punch your ticket. Confirm you're on the right place, you're on the right track, and you're going to the right destination. So by coming here every day, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, boom, ticket is punched. But the materialists, they have no such guarantee. They're just wandering aimlessly. It's like they walk into a train station and say, give me a ticket to anywhere. All tracks go to the same place. No, that's foolishness. But they say that. All paths lead to the same conclusion. No. How is that possible? Go into Grand Central Station. You have to know exactly where you're going. What train, what track, what time, what destination. So this is a material thing. So what do you think? That going back home, back to Godhead, or achieving the goal of human life is such a simple thing? Just, do anything you like? No. Very specific. You need to know where you're going, and then you need to purchase the ticket. So any questions, any comments? Bhakti Alex has got the microphone of of concern, of correction, of inquiry.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
I just want to make a comment that I really like the scriptures today. It's talking about the Lord's milk seed or the seed of milk, and that if we cannot accept that He's capable of that, I basically like that because it really speaks to His volume and His greatness. That we understand limits, that the Lord has limits, and that the Lord is omnipotent. So I just want to comment and say I really like that.
Okay, yes. The Lord is unlimited. That's the conclusion. Any other questions? Mother Emily, any questions? No?
I'll say I really liked in the beginning of the class you were mentioning how the tendency to fault find and be critical of others is kind of the single most detriment to one's cultivating emotional service. And yeah, I was hearing another class recently, I forget where exactly it was, it might have been here, but the speaker was saying jiva himsa, being envious of other, just general jivas, is the beginning of Vaishnava aparadha, and even if it's just regular jivas, that it will eventually lead to something much more severe and detrimental.
Yeah, envy and jealousy. Even the materialists know that that's bad. Right? But what to speak when one becomes a devotee and he maintains. Prabhupada said, an envious, jealous, is compared to the snake takes birth specifically with this mentality. So a person who is envious and jealous, in his next life he takes birth as a snake. Why? Because the snake will strike without provocation, without warning. Not always, but that's their nature. A man is walking by, an animal is walking by, boom, they strike. Prabhupada said, even without stepping on him, they strike. Why? So you have people like that. You have to be careful. In the New York City subway, you have people who push you in front of a train. These are crazy people. But what is that crazy? Envious and jealous. Because they're dissatisfied with their situation. And they see another person who appears to be happy or successful or whatever, and they think, boom, let me just push this person in front of a train. It's not just crazy for the sake of crazy. No, it has a cause. It has a cause. Envious and jealous. But that they took birth like that. So a jealous or envious person, it cannot be controlled like the snakes by mantra or herbs. In India, you see the snake charmers. They know how to control the snakes through certain mantras, using certain types of herbs, a certain diet. Right? But a man cannot be charmed like that, unfortunately. Yes, Prue.
Some thoughts on criticism. Jiva Himsa in Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam report, which Prabhupada includes in its entirety the cleansing of the Gundichi temple. Jiva Himsa means to stop the preaching work. So a devotee, he sees the difference between what's right and what's wrong, what people are doing. And, unlike the New Agey Mayavad, I'm okay, you're okay, and why criticize me, just love and this and that. They Prabhupada that when Yogi, that Swamiji, when they say that we're okay and you're okay, we have to say that only we're okay and that you're not okay. That's not our obstinacy, but it's the version of the Shastra. So maybe you could elaborate on that theme of distinction between criticism and actually ascertaining the difference between what's right and wrong based on the Shastra, based on the predecessor charters.
Well, obviously we know from the Bhaktivedanta purports, what the reality is. But the ability for a person who is not in this line to understand is limited. So we have the expertise to understand things in such a way as to deliver the message without altering the essence. This is a sign or a symptom of being self-realized. That you can, just like that person who's been to another country, who comes back and he tells everybody else, oh, what a beautiful place, it's like this, it's like this. In his mind's eye, he carries that location with him, and he can reference it. You know, he remembers everything about it, walking this way, and this path, and this hill, and this garden, and this temple, and this mountain. Everything is there, it's clear. He's remembering it. He's not imagining it. You know, there's a tell when you're in, you know, when you learn how to tell if somebody's lying to you. There's a way to watch their eyes to see if they're referencing a memory or if they're concocting an imagination. You know, so there's the signs. You know, this is there. You have two hemispheres in your brain, left and right. One is for memory, and one is for imagination. And you look one way or the other, depending on the situation. And the expert investigator, he says, oh, he's lying to me. He's making it up. So don't lie to an investigator. You don't want to be caught. So we have to be, for us, at least in my capacity, I'm not going to engage a person understanding his situation where he has no ability to appreciate. So we could say, of course, Prabhupada can say very easily, yes. And he can tell him, no, what are you saying like this? He has the stature. Not only he has the stature, he has everything. The self-realized soul completely sees everything, including that person. And he knows exactly how to direct his response according to the time and circumstance. Directly. But he doesn't necessarily do that. Because it may, for preaching, we have a certain, like, I know, not for me to say, you know, people go to these, what do they call them, interfaith situations, where you have to give some, you know, something about God, because you can't say Krishna. You have to say God. So it's, this is an audience that, although you're presenting something to them, you can't present it in such a way, unfortunately, other than to give them some sense of, what, unity, that yes, this is the whole point, that yeah, we're all worshiping God, the same God. But not a single person in that audience really believes that. They're all thinking, no, my God is separate, your God is separate, his God is separate. He's the God of this, they're the God of that, no. So, not the best situation for preaching, you could say. It just makes us more, appear to be more mainstream in that way. Whereas Srila Prabhupada said, no, I'm okay, you are not okay. That's the duty of the doctor. When you go into the doctor, you don't say, hey doc, I'm feeling all right. First thing he's going to say is, what'd you come here for? Why are you here? Like Urjasvat used to say. What did Urjasvat used to say? He said, if you have a question, it means you don't have an answer. So they have to become inquisitive. That level of inquisitive, that's what creates the favorable reciprocation, exchange. A person is a sincere seeker. But people who are full, and they have so many analogies like that, like the full cup. You've heard that analogy? The cup is full, you can't put anything in it. It's already full. If the guy thinks he knows everything, what can you tell him? No, I know everything. Okay, have a good day. See you next life. There's no... So we're very measured in the ability to speak to a person, and our book distributors know it well. So they get them interested enough to take the book, because Srila Prabhupada said, what can your 3 minutes of talking do? Right? What can your 3 minutes of talking do? But if he simply reads one line in the book. So that's why Prabhupada is stressing this book distribution. But, otherwise we could have so many motivational speakers. And there are devotees who become motivational speakers, but they don't speak about Krishna. They speak about all the generalities about, how spiritual life can, benefit you. In general, meditation, yoga, like that. How it can make you more effective. But this is not the goal of our preaching. Our goal is to bring a person in the association of devotees so he goes back home, back to Godhead. We have no other duty. This is the only reason, Prabhupada said, to establish a temple. The only reason. That a person could come and serve the Lord, and eventually pay it forward. I have a good thing, I want to distribute it. I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to benefit like I did. Yes, Boo, you have a follow-up.
When Prahlad Maharaj began to instruct his classmates in that chapter, Prahlad Maharaj instructs his demoniacs that he looked upon, because he was in full realization that material life was insignificant, he smiled at them. In other words, he established a loving, friendly relationship, and then he began his teaching. My dear sons of the demons, please. The kingdom of life develop Bhagavad Dharma. So the attitude of the preacher has to be based on love and compassion.
Yeah, a devotee is a friend to every living entity. That's the natural advancement. He harbors no enmity. He's actually a friend. He sees everyone, as a spirit soul, eligible for the highest knowledge. And he tries his best to reach every single one. But you see that some people just, right? We were talking, they get moded out. They're rushing. They can't stop. They can't hear. They just, somehow or other. So that's why book distribution is considered to be of such primary importance. We've told this story before, how people used to watch the book distributors in O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Pragosh would, tell me, I said, people would come up to him and offer him jobs all the time. He said, I just watched what you did. He says, you could be making thousands of dollars. He says, no, thank you. I'm just here to serve my spiritual master and distribute this love of God. And then he would turn around and he'd sell that guy a book. He said this would happen on a regular basis. Is our breakfast getting cold yet? Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Kurma Avatar ki, Kurma Rupa Prabhu ki. Amazing.